Okay, so it's time for us to, cover some more Wolverine comics as we work our way up to the Onslaught Saga. Now, we're going to cover two different comics. We're going to cover Wolverine issue number 91 and Wolverine Annual 1995. So, going to cover both stories in that annual plus issue number 91 to kind of help us with our coverage over the X-Men. So, when it comes to Wolverine around this time in Marvel Comics, we have to remember that he no longer has the adamantium on his bones, but it's now Larry Hama kind of do something different and new with the character of Wolverine, kind of changing the whole idea of the character. And you can see what I mean as we go through today's storyline, because you do have Charles Xavier explain to us what he had discovered about Wolverine and his mutation. Now, when it comes to Wolverine issue number 91, it's technically picking up where issue number 90 had left off at. But here's the catch, because between those two issues, you had two major events happen for the X-Men. The first was Legion Quest, and the other one was Age of Apocalypse. Those two X-Men events happened between issue 90 and issue number 91. But in issue number 90, Wolverine finally came back home, except when he did, he had to watch over Sabretooth, because around this time in Marvel Comics, when it came to Charles Xavier, he believed that he could fix the mind of Sabretooth, turn him into a good character. Now, the X-Men were away because they believed the world was going to end. And so they kind of left Wolverine to watch over Sabretooth, which honestly is a horrible idea. But you had Sabretooth being able to get into the mind of Wolverine by saying different things about his past. And so for Wolverine, he lost control. And so he has stabbed Sabretooth in the head. Now, technically, with the healing factor of Sabretooth, he did survive, but apparently it was only barely. And so you had Wolverine kind of stay out in the woods as a way to kind of stay away from the X-Men. Until Sabretooth leaves the school, Wolverine will not go inside. But also there is another reason why he's kind of staying outside of school in the woods. But before we're able to learn about the other reason why, we kind of see that for Wolverine, with him being out in the woods, he kind of get the chance to see all the different neighbors that Charles has. Like, for example, there's a family nearby, and you have the kids coming back home with a bunch of flowers to give to their mom, who apparently got injured. But we're kind of left to believe here at first that the husband is possibly abusing the mom, and the kids have no idea because they believe their mom is just very clumsy. But Logan is watching the family, and he knows what's going on inside of that house. Now, for Storm Beast and Charles Xavier, they're kind of wondering, like, how in the world can they help out Wolverine here? Because for Storm and Beast and Charles Xavier, they kind of realize that Wolverine is way worse than he was when he first joined the X-Men. When he had first joined the X-Men, he was somewhat rough around the edges, but he got better. But the way he is right now, he's way worse than he was back then. Now, it's also Beast pointing out the fact that Wolverine is acting more like an animal rather than a man. And so it's them kind of wondering, maybe the animal side of Wolverine realized that he's better off in the woods. Because what if he goes berserk? What if he does go berserk and kills somebody in a school, somebody he cares for? And so it's Beast, Storm, and Charles saying maybe that animal side kind of realized he's better off staying in the woods away from us as a way to protect us. And I kind of like the idea of how this does affect all the different members of the X-Men, especially for one character, and that would be Jean Grey. Now, at first, we see Psylocke picking up on the thoughts of Wolverine and kind of realize that his thoughts are all over the place. Dark, scary, like in the red flag area. But you also have Jean Grey with Psylocke and Cyclops as well, because they're having dinner together at the home of Cyclops and Jean Grey. But let's not forget that for Jean Grey, she loves two guys, Cyclops and also Wolverine. Now, technically, we could say three, because Archangel as well for a brief moment. But either way, for Jean Grey, she still believes that the man she loves is still inside Wolverine. Like, Wolverine may be acting different, but his heart is still the same. He's still the same person. It's like her believing that no matter what, the old Logan that she had fallen in love with will come back out soon and everything will go back to normal. But the problem is for Wolverine is that he's having a hard time trying to push out the darkness in his mind. That darkness is beginning to take over. It is kind of hinting at the idea that the animal side is taking over, because you didn't have Wolverine howl like he's some kind of wild animal in the middle of the night. And every single person can hear the howling of Wolverine, but it's also like how the different characters of the X-Men are trying to handle the situation going on with their friend Logan. Like, they don't know how to help him out. But we're also seeing that sometimes for Wolverine, he may not be able to just howl out his feelings, that sometimes he has to attack. He has to let out that rage by doing some damage on something. So we see Wolverine just cutting down trees left and right as a way to release all of that anger or that animal stuff inside of him to hopefully calm him down. Except now we kind of see Charles Xavier and James Hudson kind of explain to us what exactly is going on with Logan. And let me explain, because this all has to do with Weapon X. As we all know, Weapon X kidnapped Logan and gave him adamantium on his bones and gave him metal claws and made him a very cool character that fans loved. But what if they had technically saved Logan, but on complete accident? Let me explain. Because for Charles and James Hudson, what they're saying right now is that when it came to Logan, once he became a full-on mutant with a healing factor and bone claws, apparently his mutation was always going to be like this, to turn into some kind of wild animal. But when it came to Weapon X, when they had added the adamantium on his bones, it stopped the process, allowing Wolverine to just be a man. But thanks to Magneto ripping off that adamantium, it allowed the process to continue once again. And so technically right now, what we're seeing is the X-Men and also Alpha Flight saying that the only way to technically save Logan is to find a way to re-add the adamantium to his bones. Now, the ending for Wolverine issue number 91, it really does kind of end on a very interesting note, but the last few pages, it goes back and forth between two different settings that then collide together at the very end of the book. Because while you have Charles, Beast, and Storm go out of their way to confront Logan, we see that family once again, where you do have the wife trying to call the cops because, well, her husband is very abusive. And so while she's trying her best to fight off her abuser, you have Charles, Storm, Beast trying to explain things to Logan. Now for Logan, he kind of tells our heroes like, hey, listen, before I got the adamantium, my mind was a wild place. And technically that is true. But he also says the adamantium kind of helped relax my mind a tad bit. But when it came to Magneto ripping off the adamantium off my bones, I kind of had to figure out how to live a life all over again now without the metal on my bones that I had for a very long period of my life. Now, for Logan, it's also him turning down the idea of going back home to the school of Charles Xavier to hear out Charles, to hear out James Hudson on a way to save his life. Because right now, he's just so focused on taking out that abuser, but also because he feels like he's not safe around the other people at the school. Now, once you do have the wife run out of her house to get away from her abuser, you have Logan get the jump on the abuser. Now, it does seem like at first we're going to see Logan just kill off the abuser for what he is, being a guy who abuses his wife and possibly his kids as well. But you have Beast being able to stop Logan. Now, sadly, we see the wife begin to protect the abuser, kind of like, hey, listen, we know he's being bad. We know he's an abuser, but it's her saying like, he does not understand how to show love to me nor the children. So it's her she is protecting her abuser once again. Now, you do have Storm try to tell her like, hey, listen, there are centers you can go to get away from him. But for her, she does not want to leave. Instead, she wants to stay with her abuser. And so she does. Now, for Charles, he also invites Logan to come back home. Logan says no. And the reason why, because again, he feels like there's no hope in him turning back into the man they used to know, the man they used to love, but also as a way to protect them as well. But now we kind of have to get into Wolverine annual number 1995. I have no idea why I just said number 1995, because when it came to Marvel Comics in the early days leading up to 1990s, when it came to a annual, they had their own set of numbers. So for example, we had covered Uncanny X-Men annual number 18, I want to say. But by the 1990s, they kind of dropped the numbers and say, you know what, this annual came out this year. So, for example, we're covering Wolverine annual 1995. So you know what year it came from, but also this is an annual. Now, with all that being said, usually with annuals, you would get like 2 or 3 stories for one book. And so in this one, we have 2 different stories that are somewhat important for the character of Wolverine. Now, for the first one, the first story is technically a callback to the early days of Chris Claremont X-Men. Let me explain. So back in Uncanny X-Men issue number 96 and issue number 143, there was this Karen that appeared in the middle of the woods near Charles Xavier School. Now this Karen was kind of like a portal to a demonic realm that allowed a demon-like character to come into this reality. And his main goal was to take over this reality. Now the first time you had Storm just blow it up, and we're left to believe it was officially gone. It reappeared a second time, but once again he had the X-Men get rid of it. Well, now it had reappeared a third time, but now one of those demons from that realm had basically used that Karen as a portal and now arrived on this reality plane. And so now you had a demon heading over towards the school of Charles Xavier. And for Logan, luckily, he was able to track down that demon. And so now we're picking up with the idea of Logan fighting against a demon as a way to protect the people who are inside the school of Charles Xavier, the rest of the X-Men technically. But inside the school of Charles Xavier, we pick up with the X-Men, but also Boom Boom, and also Nightcrawler as well. Now, around this time in Marvel Comics, Boom Boom was part of X-Force, but X-Force was currently staying with the X-Men for a short period of time. Now, for Nightcrawler, he is the leader of Excalibur, but he came back home to spend some time with his best friend, and his best friend is Wolverine. Now, this is also Nightcrawler hearing what's going on with Logan and kind of feels bad about the idea that they're not out there in the woods looking for him and trying to bring him back in as a way to help him. And so you have Beast tell Nightcrawler like, hey, listen, like, he has to handle things on his own. He'll come to us when he is ready. But for Nightcrawler, he's kind of wondering, what if we're too late to help him? What's going to happen by then? Now, that is when the alarms go off. And the reason why, because it's Logan fighting against that demon. Now, when you have our heroes like Charles Xavier check the cameras, they don't really see anything. And for Charles, he had to reset the security system because for Logan living out in the woods, he would always set off the alarms. And so the system should not be picking up Logan at all. Now, you do have Charles use his abilities to kind of read the minds out there in the woods. He finds Logan, but he also finds the demon mind as well. And when you have Charles how to read the mind of the demon, he does somewhat remember this demon, but not completely. And honestly, he's not really able to get a full picture of the mind he's kind of reading at the moment. And so you have Charles ask Psylocke to use her powers kind of help out with the situation. But the problem is that by the time you have Psylocke try to help out to figure out what's happening out in the woods, you have Logan and also the demon go inside the Karen into the demon realm. And so, of course, they don't pick up anything at all. But of course, it does freak out Nightcrawler. And so he goes out there. And when he does, he realizes what has returned because he was there the last 2 times this Karen had appeared. And so you had Nightcrawler also go inside the Karen as well, into that demon realm. And so once you have Nightcrawler go inside this realm, it's Nightcrawler kind of realizing that one, they're now in some kind of demonic realm, but two, is him finally seeing Wolverine be this savage character that the rest of the X-Men had warned him about. Because when he does arrive, all he sees is Logan right now fighting against demons and killing them off left and right. And so for Nightcrawler, he's kind of happy about the idea of being able to work together with his friend, but he's also realizing that Logan is being a savage, that Logan is trying to make sure that every single demon in this realm is going to die. And once the battle is over, for Nightcrawler, he wants to go back home to warn the rest of the X-Men about what just happened. But for Logan, he does not want to go back home. He wants to stay right here and continue to fight, but also find the leader of the demons to finally kill him off. It's kind of showing that right now, this is a man who's just being a savage animal at the moment, who just wants to fight, who just wants to kill. And with that healing factor, he's going to continue no matter what. But now we get our first look of the demon leader of this demonic realm, and that is a character known as Krock. Now, when it comes to Krock, he's actually the leader of this demon realm, but we don't know his full origin just yet. As a matter of fact, when in Kingdom Marvel Comics, they didn't really explain his entire origin until later on when it came to the Scarlet Witch in her books that came out many years after this one in the earlier one. So unfortunately, we don't know everything about this character. All we know right now is that he is trying his best to leave this realm to go over into the main Marvel Universe realm. And so right now, he's overhearing what's been happening to his fellow demons, his henchmen. And he's kind of like, hey, you know what? That is not okay at all. I hate the idea of my demons being killed off by Nightcrawler and Logan. Now, technically, it's just Logan, but for him, he's hearing and seeing the two characters in his realm, Nightcrawler and also Wolverine. Now, getting back over to Nightcrawler and Logan, you have the two characters having a conversation. And honestly, I kind of like this conversation because it's really more of Nightcrawler trying to point out that for Logan, he's worried for Logan. But it's also Nightcrawler trying to make sense of all of this mess that Logan is currently going through. But for Logan, he's not really trying to make sense of any of this. Matter of fact, it's really more of Logan saying like, listen, I get it. You guys are scared of me. You guys are scared of the fact, the possibility that I might make you guys look bad because I'm out here turning myself into some kind of killing machine, going after bad people and actually killing them. But it's also Nightcrawler saying, no, you don't understand. We realize that, yes, we are afraid of the possibility of yourself losing control, but at the same time, you're also scared of losing control, turning into some kind of animal. And you had Logan say, no, I'm not afraid to admit it. Like right now, I feel my mind slipping piece by piece, bit by bit, into a killing machine, the man I'm supposed to be. But you didn't have Krock appear. Now, when Krock's appear, he's kind of like, hey, listen, the last time we battled Logan, it was on Earth. But now you're in my realm. And so this allows me the chance to finally fight against you and most likely defeat you. And so now you have Logan just trying to fight against Krock. Now, Krock is showing Logan that he's not somebody to play around with. But at the same time, so is Logan, because Logan has a healing factor. Logan is a savage at the moment. This man will not stop until he is able to kill off Krock. And unfortunately for Krock, he's now realizing that he might have made a huge mistake, but he believes that he can keep Wolverine and Nightcrawler busy long enough to allow his fellow demons to begin to invade the Earth. And so they're now heading over to the Earth realm to go attack the X-Men and the rest of the Earth. And for Nightcrawler, he wants to leave to stop them, but for Logan, he does not want to leave. He wants to stay behind and continue to fight against Krock. But you didn't have Logan and Nightcrawler agree to go back up to fight against the demons that Krock had released onto the Earth. But again, it's Nightcrawler showing us, not Nightcrawler, it's Logan showing us how savage he is at the moment, just killing off these demons left and right. Now, for the rest of the X-Men, the security system does go off, but this time for Charles Xavier, he can feel the minds of the demons. He can feel the minds of Logan and Nightcrawler, but also Krock as well. So he's like, hey guys, listen, I need all hands on deck because I now remember what's out there, and occasionally comes back. It's Krock in that goddamn Karen. Go out there and fight against those demons. We gotta stop them now. Now, the ending of the storyline is pretty funny to me because you have Krock technically admit that he's giving up, because the reason why he had released those demons onto Earth was to basically grab Nightcrawler and Wolverine away so that he can then close the portal to his reality, because Wolverine did some serious damage to him. It's him saying like, hey, I gotta give up. That dude right there was too hard for me to defeat. So you know what? Let me go ahead and admit it. I lost, but don't worry. Next time, I'm going to be able to defeat you, Wolverine, and the rest of the X-Men. Now, you do have the rest of the X-Men appear, right? But when they do appear, they find Nightcrawler. And it's Nightcrawler saying like, Logan is worse than he ever has been before. Like, it's Nightcrawler really being scared of Logan. But the question is right now, where is Logan? Well, he ran off. He's back out there hiding in the woods. And so we're getting another example of the idea that sooner or later, we might see Logan just be a savage animal out in the woods near Charles Xavier's Institute. Now, the next story we have to talk about involves Maverick, where you have Maverick just crash his aircraft on the front lawn of Xavier's home. And so you then have Wolverine walk over to make sure that Maverick is okay. Now, the last time we saw Maverick, he got in the legacy virus. And I know you guys are probably tired of me explaining what the legacy virus is, but just in case you have anybody, trying to get into comics, let me just go ahead and explain what the legacy virus is all about. The legacy virus came from the future thanks to Strife. He brought the virus to the past and released the virus out into the world. Now, at first, the virus was only going after mutants, and that was really it. But then out of nowhere, it began to go after humans as well. Now, technically, there's only one human right now who has the virus, and that is Moira Taggart. But for Maverick, he has the virus, but he's trying his best to hang on. Now, the last time we saw him, he wanted Logan to go ahead and kill him off. Logan said no, and you had Maverick leave. But now here's Maverick just laying out on the ground in front of Logan. We also kind of find out that some kind of hidden organization was able to grab Deadpool, and they kind of believe the possibility that Deadpool might have the cure for the legacy virus. So right now, he's a prisoner, but also being used for an experiment. But getting back over to the school of Charles Xavier, we're seeing Beast being that doctor character, being able to bring Maverick back to health for a good point where he's able to walk again, but also being able to communicate with Logan as well, to explain to Logan what in the world is going on. Now, this kind of leads into the part where you have Logan say, hey, Maverick, why are you here for? Like, are you here for me to kill you off because you have the legacy virus? You have Maverick say no. Instead, he needs Logan's help because apparently somebody is going after him, Deadpool, and also Wolverine, and possibly anybody else who was involved with Weapon X. And let me explain why. Because they believe the healing factor, they might find a cure for the legacy virus. Now, technically, we're not really told the name of this group at all. But the thing is, they believe the cure for the virus could be inside of Wolverine, Maverick, or possibly Deadpool. And when it came to Maverick, when he came back home, he was attacked. Now, at first, I believe the person who attacked him had to be a Reaver. And technically, it is not a Reaver. See, as we jump back over to those scientists who are testing on Deadpool, we kind of find out they also hired a character known as Slayback. Now, Slayback was one of the early day villains for Deadpool who unfortunately fell into the back burner area of Marvel Comics because he barely pops up in Marvel Comics. But for Slayback, he was somebody who was supposedly killed off by Deadpool in the past, but of course has survived, but also gave himself some cybernetic body parts to kind of help him get revenge against Deadpool. In an earlier storyline, he tried to use Copycat as bait to get to Deadpool to hopefully kill him off. Again, all took place in the past, but when it comes to Slayback, he is working for the scientists. Now, the ending of the story does get wrapped up very quickly here. And the reason why, because you do have Maverick and Wolverine head over to the scientist base. And when they do arrive, you do have our heroes being able to free Deadpool. But right after freeing Deadpool, you did have all three characters begin to fight against a character known as Slayback. Now, for Slayback, while keeping the heroes busy, it allowed the scientists to escape. But before they did escape, they had started a self-destruct sequence. So the entire place is going to blow up. Now for our heroes, they jump out the window, and technically this base kind of hanging on the side of a waterfall. So they have a long drop, but right after they do jump out the window, the place does blow up, and we're kind of left to believe that Slayback is dead. Now, for our heroes, when they do get to the ground level, Deadpool had disappeared, but S.H.I.E.L.D. had arrived. You see, for S.H.I.E.L.D., they're trying their best to gather enough evidence to move on that group of scientists to hopefully bring them in. But thanks to Wolverine and Maverick, they kind of ruined those plans. Now, for Maverick, he was really wondering, is there a possibility that Deadpool might be a cure for the legacy virus? And so 3 days later, you have Maverick find a blood sample of Deadpool that was left behind by Deadpool so that Deadpool could see if there is a possibility that he could be a cure for the legacy virus. So you have Maverick take the sample over to Beast, where you have Beast tell Maverick, no. Like, unfortunately, this right here cannot be the cure for the legacy virus. So for Maverick, it's another failure when it comes to finding a way to get rid of the legacy virus. But the book does end on that note right there. And so with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.